Top technical talent often gravitates toward the most difficult engineering problems. Left unguided, developers will naturally dedicate thousands of hours to building perfectly abstracted infrastructure while failing to generate any distinct business advantage. Writing up the bespoke authentication framework or a custom distributed scheduler requires managing low-level protocol handshakes and complex thread safety. Because these problems are technically rewarding to solve, they act as talent traps, consuming the highest-tier engineering bandwidth available to a team. Software architecture is ultimately an exercise in resource allocation, and human attention is your most expensive finite resource. Technical difficulty does not equal strategic importance. A team can spend years deploying a flawless, mathematically beautiful system that perfectly solves the wrong problem, resulting in a product that is technically impressive but indistinguishable from a dozen competitors in the market. This visualization represents a typical monolithic domain model. In a system like this, every feature, every database table, and every API endpoint is treated with equal importance. The result is total conceptual overload. To solve this, domain-driven design introduces a specific architectural process called distillation. It forces a team to extract the exact essence that makes the software valuable. The goal of this scan is separating generic infrastructure from unique business logic. We are filtering out everything that is standard, expected, or purely operational. What remains in the center is the core domain. This is the highly concentrated area of the domain model that directly creates a competitive advantage. During planning meetings, every stakeholder will argue that their specific feature is mission-critical. Distillation is the logical mechanism to cut through that noise and isolate the exact components that differentiate your business. This chart maps an online marketplace's theoretical architecture, dozens of modules like identity, billing, and notifications. The distillation protocol locates the true competitive advantage. Here, the core domain is matching and pricing. Calculating optimal prices is why users choose this platform. Identifying this dictates what Eric Evans calls the talent directive. You must keep your most experienced, highly skilled developers strictly focused on this core domain. These engineers cannot be rotated off to build blogging frameworks. They must remain on the core domain long enough to accumulate deep, specialized knowledge of the marketplace's economic rules, not just its codebase. By locking senior engineers onto the core domain, you ensure your company's distinct market advantage is directly backed by your best technical minds. Everything outside the core must be aggressively categorized. Most of the remaining system consists of generic subdomains, capabilities that are absolutely necessary for operation but offer zero competitive edge. In this marketplace, identity, notifications, and billing are generic subdomains. Generic doesn't mean unimportant. If billing fails, the company goes bankrupt. But a flawless billing system won't win new customers. It's a baseline expectation. Because they do not differentiate to business, you should never build generic subdomains from scratch. Architects should buy off-the-shelf solutions, integrate open-source libraries, or enforce strict standardization to prevent these areas from absorbing custom engineering hours. Explicitly classifying and offloading generic subdomains frees up massive amounts of engineering bandwidth. It allows the team to accelerate iteration on the core domain by removing the constant maintenance burden of custom building standard utilities. Once the core is isolated, it must be documented. The tool for this is the Domain Vision Statement, an artifact used to reify the core domain and communicate its value to engineering and management. The format is a short, one-page document. It defines the specific business value the core domain brings to the enterprise, detailing how it models reality. There is a strict rule for writing this statement. It must aggressively exclude all technical stack choices, UI frameworks, and infrastructure jargon. If the document mentions a specific database or a cloud provider, it is an infrastructure spec, not a domain vision statement. This statement acts as an architectural anchor. It prevents scope creep by ensuring every new code commit directly serves the core business proposition outlined on that single page. In practice, as a project scales and headcount grows, the core domain has a tendency to fade back into the noise of standard architecture diagrams. To prevent this, teams employ the highlighted core pattern. This means physically annotating architecture maps and code repositories so developers instantly know when they are crossing the boundary into the core. This context map explicitly tracks dependencies and influence across teams. Analyzing the upstream and downstream arrows reveals the architecture's flow of power. The upstream context defines the model, while the downstream context must conform its code to match. This establishes a clear operational rule. Any architectural change inside the highlighted core demands team-wide consultation and strict review. Conversely, changes to generic downstream modules can be handled autonomously by individual developers. Highlighting the core transforms an abstract business strategy into a daily operational boundary. It structurally protects your most valuable code from accidental dilution. Strategic alignment fails when teams attempt to bypass the distillation process. The most common mistake is labeling every single feature as core, simply to appease different department heads and secure project funding. This violates the mathematical reality of architecture. If everything is treated as the core priority, nothing actually is. The second mistake is re-equating technical complexity with strategic value when reviewing new feature requests. This leads directly to the third mistake, custom building generic capabilities simply out of engineering vanity or boredom, which drains resources away from the actual business differentiator. Finally, teams often pollute the domain vision statement with technology buzzwords. They focus on the tools they want to use rather than the domain capabilities the business actually needs to survive. Falling for any of these mistakes reverses the distillation process. It drags the engineering team back into the infrastructure trap, burning capital on systems that generate no competitive advantage. The business landscape is not static. A capability that represents a unique core domain today will likely become a commoditized generic subdomain tomorrow as competitors catch up. Because of this, distillation is not a one-time whiteboard session. It is a continuous architectural process of model refinement. Software architecture is the continuous, deliberate allocation of human attention. By constantly distilling the domain and protecting the core, you ensure your software architecture remains a direct, functional extension of your business strategy.